Hey everyone, this is Jason McCann with Mountain Tactical Company. A couple weeks ago, we ruffled a lot of feathers with our Tikka Cerakote PSA video. It was huge. I mean, over all formats, or I guess what would be, don't know the technical term, but basically whatever YouTube is, channels, Meta, everybody, we had almost 30,000 views. It was pretty ridiculous. We did not expect it to just kind of like blow up as big as it did. And it did ruffle a lot of feathers. And I want to first say, I have absolutely zero incentive to say anything negative about Tikka. And actually quite the opposite is our business is directly tied to Tikka's success. If Tikka sales go down, our sales go down because if rifles aren't getting purchased by new shooters, then they don't have reasons to buy our scope mounts and bottom metal and magazines and bolt shrouds and all that other fun stuff. So there was absolutely zero incentive for me to make this video, but we do have a philosophy of just state the facts, tell the truth. And the fact is, our customers were having issues with these rifles and we had to get to the bottom of it. And that's what we're doing. And so we've had lots of conversations with Beretta USA. They've been kind of our liaison with Sako Tikka, and want to cover a couple things right out of the gate. So they immediately clarified that the barreled actions under the Cerakote on both Sako and Tikka are all stainless, which is really good to hear. And what caused a lot of confusion about that is, well, first off, when I emailed Mika to ask him, I spelled his name wrong. I guess that's why he didn't reply or didn't get the email or something like that. There's two Ks and I put one K in his name, so that's on me. The advertising for the original Rough Tech, because the original Rough Tech, which is what this is, said it was a stainless barreled action, and then it was Cerakoted black over. It was actually one of the sales points and was put in their marketing material. And then that was removed from their marketing material, and which is interesting because that is a huge selling point when you're selling these rifles, is not only are they Cerakoted, but they're stainless underneath the Cerakote. So that solves any of the concerns that I had as far as the inside of the actions not being painted, and there's definitely not going to be any corrosion issues there. And then I touched on before, there was definitely the silence from Sako Tikka was because I misspelled Mika's name, and that is what it is. I'll take the blame for that one. So as part of the problem-solving process, I have to give kudos to both Beretta and Sako. They're taking this very seriously. We have sent them pictures of their standard stainless actions, and we put this ground parallel on it. We did a light test, and what the light test does is if there's an uneven surface, the light will actually penetrate under the parallel. So if you look at our stainless action, you can see no light penetrates. And then we actually used this professionally Cerakoted rifle. We did the parallel test, and as you can see in this picture, no light has penetrated underneath that ground parallel. And then when we put that parallel on this rifle, we did it in two locations. The first location was on the side, so this is where your dovetail mounts are going to attach, and you can see light penetrated under there. And then we did kind of bridging the two different edges, which is where your Picatinny rail is going to sit down on it, and you can see light penetrated under the ground parallel in that situation. And we'll get to Sako's response to that in just a second, but if you don't have a flat surface, you're going to put uneven pressure on your optic mounts, and that is over time under recoil, and it's going to cause long-term accuracy issues. So that's why this is so important. All right, so like I said earlier, we've been in communication with both Sako and Beretta over this whole thing, and so I said, hey, we're going to shoot the follow-up video on this. Can you guys actually put some bullet notes together of what you want me to tell everybody? And so I was working with Tonali. He's the product manager for commercial rifles in Finland, and this is what he sent us regarding our previous video and everything that we've uncovered so far. I definitely don't think we're at the end of this entire investigation. So he did clarify that the material on the barrel and the receiver are always stainless on Sako and Tikka rifles, so you're not going to have to worry about corrosion. And the reason why they do that is any coating, no matter what it is, can chip off, brush off, eventually wear out just from friction, and they wanted to make sure there was no corrosion that would occur in case that happened in the future. So they do not spray the internals of the action because they say it will cause impaired smoothness to the bolt movement. Now, there are two schools of thought. Cerakote is very thin, and so if applied correctly, it will not interfere with the smoothness of the bolt. If anything, it will improve it because this is a very hard surface. However, it is very difficult to do this correctly and not overspray. And so if you had overspray inside of here, you have uneven thickness on the inside of your action, the bolts definitely would not operate smoothly. So I definitely understand where they're coming from. It is a commercial Cerakote operation, and so they're trying to get as many of these rifles through as possible. So that makes sense. He did confirm that they have always used aluminum oxide blasting, and this is done by their vendor. So all their Cerakote is done outside of Sako Tikka in Finland. He says later that it is the biggest Cerakote account in Europe, so they have a very large Cerakote house processing their rifles. And he said that for me to say otherwise is just absurd. Okay, all I'm doing is stating what I see here. But what I was talking about in the previous video about the surface prep, he does explain what's going on later here. So we'll just dive a little further into this. When we're talking about the thread holes in here, and I have a little close-up picture that we can put up if we didn't make that clear in the previous video of what we're experiencing. And so you can see where you have the raised edges on the flats, and then you can see where there's all the crusty Cerakote caught up around, that basically pooled around these the top of the threads on the action, and then kind of cracked and is causing problems. I said these are small plastic screws that are left in the receiver to protect the threads for any corrosion or external material. And they plug the holes prior to the Cerakote process. That makes sense because these are the exact same plugs that are found in just the stainless action that you have to punch out to actually put a scope mount on top of your rifle. And so the issues with the screws not running smoothly on the threads on top of the receiver may be caused by other factors aside from the Cerakote paint. And so he talks about how the threads, because they are plastic, or the thread protectors, because they are plastic, there can be residual plastic in the threads, which I believe would be compounded by the fact that they're kind of skipping a step in the Cerakote process, because you normally, plug these threads or just Cerakote, chase the threads with a tap, and then put these thread protectors in. But if these are a little plastic and you're baking your Cerakote at 325 to 350 degrees for, I want to say it's like 20 or 30 minutes, that plastic's going to get soft and expand, just like Loctite does, into the little fissures and tiny crevices in that thread that normally has no contact with anything. And because of that expansion, we're more likely to see these plugs remain, or residue from these plugs remain inside the threads, and be even more difficult to get out before putting those threads in. So this is making sense. It says, and it may also be that initiation of thread may be deformed to some level by our blasting process. Again, that makes sense. Aluminum oxide is a very corrosive blast agent, and when you put compressed air behind it, it hits with a lot of force. I mean, it is supposed to put all these fissures in the surface of the metal for the Cerakote to grab a hold of. And so it makes sense with these teeny tiny little 648 threads that you would damage them if those threads were hit by that aluminum oxide. So that makes a lot of sense. This is something we will investigate and find improvements in our process. Awesome. They're looking into it and they're going to figure out how to make their process better. Awesome news. Anyhow, it is a good and common practice to run the threads clear before mounting a rail or mounts. Now, I will say this is a good practice, but I do not believe this is a common practice. And so what he's saying here is you're supposed to clean out the threads prior to putting the screws in. Well, the only way to clean out these threads properly is to run a 648 tap through the threads and then put your screws in. And I'll have to double check, but I do not believe that's in the instruction manual. And I can say that this is definitely not common practice. But I do agree that it is a very good practice. You're less likely to damage your screws. You're less likely to have some weird, you're getting a positive torque reading when you're torquing down your screws, but you're really torqued against plastic. And over time, everything's shifting under recoil. All of a sudden, that screw comes loose. I think it is a really good idea to just run these threads clean before mounting an optic. And I don't know, Colin, maybe we should add that to our instruction set for our rails, just to hit this point twice. All right, so here's where we get into the meat of it and why we have an uneven surface here. So he goes into it. It wasn't the surface prep, but he does explain why this surface is uneven. It says the light toned Cerakote paints that we use, and so this Veiled Alpine, he says, is H256 Desert Verde on the light Veiled Alpine and H235 Coyote Tan on the T3x Super Light Rough Tech Coyote Tan are easily scratched and dented. And I can confirm this because I have used H235 Coyote Tan on an M4 before, and that Cerakote job's wrecked. So that's if you, back up a little bit, Cerakote's a two-part system. So you have a hardener, you have the paint, you mix the two together, and Nick's over the owners of Cerakote have the ratios all dialed in and tell you what to do to make it spray and have it on flat and everything like that. So says this is the nature of lighter tone Cerakote paints, and this has been discussed with Nick Industries. So I guess this is a widely known problem with these types of colors. So in the beginning of the Veiled Alpine production in 2020, we realized very quickly that the coating had visual defects due to the handling and mounting and dismounting, etc. Therefore, we changed the solution mix to be thicker and more durable on Desert Verde, this color. This may cause some unevenness on the surface of the paint when it solidifies, as it has somewhat altered viscosity. Basically, because they're mixing it thicker to make it more durable so it doesn't scratch and flake and everything is easy, it can't lay flat. It is a trade-off between durability and viscosity, and we have chosen durability. Okay. He goes on to say, I do not see this as a big issue. Now, this is where, Tonally, with all due respect, I disagree. And the reason why is anybody who's been around accurate rifles knows you cannot have tension on the rifle system. Can't have tension on the optic mounting system. So everything needs to fit together properly. If you have an uneven surface, and so you have part of your optic mount with a high level of pressure, part of your optic mount with no pressure at all, you don't have a good mating surface. Just like if you tried to put the barrel onto your action, and if there was dust in there, you'd have a high spot and a low spot, and you wouldn't have that perfect mate between your barrel and your action. It's going to cause little micro vibrations under recoil, and that's the difference between less accurate rifles, we won't say any brands, and why Tikkas and Sakos are known for their accuracy, is because they mate together great. I think that, again, I disagree. If you don't have perfect mating surfaces, you're never going to see the full potential out of your rifle. He goes on, he explains that their account, or excuse me, the Cerakote facility they use is the biggest Cerakote account in Europe. So definitely confirms they're outsourcing. And then there could definitely be an argument on whether or not volume versus craftsmanship can exist in the same facility. And then had to put a little jab in here. Jason, I have to say I was pretty disappointed with the tone in which your video was made. Well, unfortunately, I was really disappointed that I had to make that video because we obviously love Tikkas. I've invested millions of dollars into parts for Tikkas. We manufacture everything in-house. We love Tikkas. We are tied at the hip with Tikka. If Tikka doesn't do well, we don't do well. So I guess there's I've been on several manufacturing engineering teams, and there's always compromises that are made. That's why a Ford Taurus is less expensive than a Bentley Continental GT. In the Bentley Continental, there is absolutely zero compromise. The Ford Taurus, there's compromises to hit a price point. I understand that. I just disagree with any compromise that can basically shake the foundation that your product is based on, i.e. accuracy and precision. He encourages everybody who is having an issue to contact Beretta USA. I know this can be difficult. We hear all the time how Beretta USA's customer service is difficult to reach, difficult to get a response from. We have horror stories that people have waited months to get responses from Beretta USA. But based on their recommendation, we're going to throw Beretta USA's customer service contact information at the end of this video. Please contact them and let them know if you're seeing what we're seeing on your rifle. He says, if we don't get the information about quality issues or defects, our possibilities to fix these issues and improve our processes are quite limited. So two things. One, he's absolutely correct. I mean, if they don't know about it, I mean, we're just the intermediary between you guys and Beretta and Sako Tikka at this point. So if you contact Beretta USA directly, then they're hearing it from the horse's mouth. And I will say the fact that he's looking at how they can improve their processes, that is a +1 on the Sako Tikka side. Sako Tikka side, because there's so many companies that just kind of brush this stuff under the rug. They kind of play the corporate game of just trying to, pass blame instead of looking at how they can improve things. And overall, this email from Tonally is all around giving you guys the confidence that they make a fantastic product, and that if there are issues and they've found issues in the past and they've made corrective actions, and if they need to make future corrective actions, they are willing to do so. And so I would say overall that is a positive. So at the end of the day, I can say that the team over at Beretta USA, the team at Sako Tikka, wants your experience with your Tikka to be awesome and for you to enjoy your trigger time.